What's the big idea?
So we are back with another episode of Volleyballogy. My name is Zuby.
My name's Erik.
My name's Meach.
And we are Volleyballogy.
Here we are.
Yep, back again.
Wait, you
back
guys
again.
aren't going to sing this time? I was ready for it.
No.
Oh.
I was hyped up.
Meach
this
forgot?
time.
No, I just didn't think it was appropriate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It may come later in the show.
Okay, I'll be ready.
I'll be ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be singing. There's always singing and dancing and a little nudity.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
Mhm.
Yeah, make sure to check out our album. We're
Oh, yeah, we're releasing an album.
yeah.
A Christmas album.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with lots of singing and humming and forgetting the words.
Mhm.
It's more
All
of a it'll be us lip syncing the classics.
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah.
a Milli Vanilli Christmas for those of you old enough to remember Milli Vanilli. Okay. So today's episode is the ultimate coaching. The ultimate coaching season. So we're going to do a series of these episodes, and they are going to be. We're going to have the ultimate coaches season. We're going to have the ultimate parents season,
What else?
and the ultimate. Hold on, there's more.
Ooh.
The ultimate players season. So it's going to be a chance for us to make a list of, the dream season, dream scenario for coaches, players, parents, not in that order. And this one is the coaches episode. Of course, players and parents should listen in on this too, because, this is something you can go, look at your coach and judge them.
That's
Mm.
right.
What about that
Valuable-
bonus episode?
Mhm.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah.
Oh, which bonus episode?
Yeah, the ultimate reffing season.
Oh, yes. We are going to, Meach raised that point that we
Yeah.
we are neglecting our referee friends.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so we're going to do, some joke episodes about the refs.
We have
Because
to
let's
do-
face it, who cares about the refs?
Well, that's what I mean. We have to do
Just
some
kidding, refs.
research, right, to
Yes.
see what they like.
Yeah. I think we have a sense of what refs think.
What it's like
Yeah.
What refs know, what refs believe.
3
about-
red cards a game. Is that a good feeling?
I think they probably look at people, not to ruin the show, but I think we'll do a reffing show, and I think they probably think, like, does this really matter this much? Do you need to throw a chair at me, really?
will pass.
Put the knife away. I'm just here.
I mean, we've all played ref roles,
Mhm.
so it's
Yeah.
not just going to be a free for all, but
Yeah, and we have
it'll have some very
we have
good content.
and we have reffing friends. We have
Mhm.
lots of friends who are refs,
Mhm.
and enemies who are refs.
Mhm.
Yes. It
I know
plays
you're-
both sides, right?
I know your clipboard's empty. You're just holding it. There's nothing on there.
You mean that's what a ref says to a coach?
Well, that's what they're thinking about that coach.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. That's
Sometimes they'll go obviously about the lineup that you've put on.
Yeah. So he looks at the cards like, you sure?
Yeah.
All right.
I got some advice for you.
Oh, really? You're playing that player? Okay.
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 All right. Shut up, you guys.
Okay.
So let's get to this. So anybody, how do we want to start this? How do we want to do this? Do we want to do it where I give my list and then you guys agree with it and then we go home, or do you want to mix in your stupid ideas? Just kidding.
Should we even try?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was wondering.
All right. Well,
No, we'll let Meach start this time.
do your list.
You sure?
Well,
My list is
I don't
long.
mind.
My list is long.
Okay.
These are a list of
Just call
needs I
him
have.
Darth.
These are lists of needs I have in a coach.
So you're the coach and we're the referees? Is that what's going on?
I want a
right now?
handsome coach. No, I'm just kidding. I could say pretty.
Gorgeous.
Either way, the coach has to be physically attractive. Just kidding. Ugly coaches work too. So don't worry, listener. Our core audience is ugly, by the way. No, actually, I did a little research on our Spotify and YouTube accounts. You know that our listeners are better looking than the average person?
Oh,
It's true.
makes
True story.
sense.
Yeah,
True.
Spotify has
Yeah.
a thing, some facial recognition thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Russians are behind. Sorry, no, we have, just in case we have listeners in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, that was bad. But
Well,
anyway,
we had
no, it's
listeners
just
in
everybody's
Russia.
blaming Russia for everything. Anyway,
There is good and bad
Yes.
in everyone.
there's the singing. No, but no, it's true. Our listeners are better looking. And actually, you know what's weird? If they start out ugly, by listening, they get better looking. That's a fact, right?
It's
so
science.
before a hot date, good thing.
Yeah, good.
Put on the show.
Yep, good on the
Well,
show.
first you do the
Volleyball
50 Meach push-ups. Then you listen,
yes.
or you listen while doing them,
Mhm.
and then you go out on the hot date.
Yes. For those of you, that was in our first or second episode. Meach disclosed to us that he does push-ups before he gets in the shower, so he looks better in the nude.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
Isn't that why we all do push-ups?
It's the only
To
reason.
look better? No, I don't think so. I think I do.
Or we can just,
I
you
do
can
it
just
for
wear,
performance.
you can just wear tank tops all the time.
Yeah. Anyway, we're
You don't
doing it.
have
Okay,
to
let's
be
get to the list. People are like, can you guys shut up?
What the
hell?
Your
We-
page is blank. You don't even have anything on.
This page is blank, but I have a digital list, a digital
Oh.
page. No, so people are fast forwarding. We do this to test the listeners. Anyway, shut up. Okay, so should I do my list, or do you guys want to do your?
I'm waiting.
Okay, here we go.
Here, you want drum roll?
No, it's not that good.
Okay.
Okay, so the ultimate coaches season. Here we go. One thing. We start from the beginning. Well, we've talked about this before.
Beginning of time?
The ultimate, no, just the beginning of tryouts. Coaches need to have open tryouts, right? So no re-signings. I want to
Wait,
tell.
is this advice for coaches or the?
It's
for
the
coaches?
ultimate. It's the ultimate season. So this is what the ultimate season would look like. So in the ultimate season, a coach needs to not give guaranteed spots to returning players. Now I know clubs are insecure and they're afraid about losing players, but I mean I guess this goes to if you're a good coach, right? Then only a good coach can do this. Like if you're a respected coach, because then the players are all dying to play for you. So, but in the ideal world, a coach has a full, they'll talk to families who are returning and say, listen, we want to get you on the team, but we will not make a promise. These days, players think that's a big insult. They think that, they didn't offer me a spot. Well, then I'm going to go play at another club. Too bad. Dream season for the coach.
See you later.
Open tryouts. I want to pick the best players in that gym. Agreed?
Agreed. 100%.
Okay. We're 1 for 1. Okay. And feel free to stop me if you guys have anything on your list that's related to that or not. But my next one, I think that the coach has to, from those tryouts, pick the best athletes, best players for different positions, regardless of their size. So if you had a great, I always think middles should be taller, obviously, because they got to do the bulk of the blocking. But I think you should pick the best middles there, the best left sides there, the best right sides there, the best setters there. And if they can do the job and they can get blocks and they can get block touches and they can get whatever, pick the best players. I think that's pretty basic.
Yeah.
But it's actually controversial because you'll see again every gym you go to, and parents, you've seen this too, where there are kids, whether it's your kid or not, preferably if it's not your kid, because it's more honest that way, less bias. You've seen great kids not get picked for teams because they're not the right size,
right?
And that drives me nuts.
Very, very.
So
wrong.
the coach needs to be ready for some dirty play in tryouts, like parents coming up or the player coming up and trying to schmooze or whatever. Is that good?
Well, I think it's too busy. It doesn't really happen in tryouts. I think in tryouts, coaches are too busy. There's too many players there. When it happens is during the season usually. Like a parent will become buddy with the coach.
For more play time, et cetera.
And sometimes
well, there you go. That's part of the. I guess you have an order there. So
I think like I don't know how much that works. Like I hope. I mean, I'm sure it works with like bad coaches, but I mean, if a coach is influenced by playing time because the parent schmoozes them,
it's going to happen. It's inevitable.
It's inevitable with a weak coach. I think a good coach doesn't give a shit about that stuff.
Right. Like, that's what I mean. Like, it'll happen to all the coaches, whoever gives into it, in a way.
Yeah.
That's the...
Yeah. No, because it can work two ways. Like, for coaches, if you find yourself in that situation where you're buddies with a parent and it gets awkward, don't forget, if you're buddies with a parent, then they should understand that, if they're a real buddy, then that's a good way to, if they're upset when you sit their kid,
if you're building a program and you're building expectations for the next season, you want to kind of maintain a standard of
professionalism.
There you go. Yeah.
That's the word, right? Like even today, so my daughter had a big tournament today and we were talking with the coaches and they were asking advice and they know that I played. And so they were talking with me, but I always tell them, like, I actually praised them because they were playing all the players.
Yeah.
This was an exhibition tournament. And I said, what's so awesome is that you're letting those kids, and they had like a great comeback win with their subs. They shouldn't have beat this team. And they had this, man, they're all celebrating. I was like, you gave those kids memories today that they could have left here today saying, I never played. I sat there the whole day and I never played, but they all got to play. And the coaches didn't care about losing a bunch of sets. They could have won because they wanted to make people better. Now in competitive games, they're going to, play their top line more, but I know they're still going to play these other kids because they're gonna give that like that. Those kids will be turned on to volleyball. I told them the story about our friend. Yeah, I brought up the story about our friend. If you haven't
before,
we talked about it on the show where like one of our friends. The reason why this topic really I learned this very early and Meach did too is because we had a great friend who was awful on our high school team, became our best player in our last year of high school. This is back when high school was 5 years, and he wouldn't have had that final year, by the way, to become a great player. But he never got to play a whole tournament. If it would happen today instead of in the 90s, he would have quit. He went, improved, and became our best player on the team in his final year, and then went to varsity and played at a major university program. And again, that kid, he never saw the court. Our coach never played him, even though we were blowing teams out. So, we're getting off topic, but that's another one of those ones. So a coach takes the best athletes and, from tryouts. I just want to see a coach make players fight it out for a spot and then let them pick the best ones. It seems so basic to me, but it doesn't seem to happen.
You can show you care for because maybe there's that player who doesn't quite have the skill of the others, but you can see the potential in them, or you can already see the growth or like their mindset or their temperament in the tryout. Like they're really you can see that drive in them, but maybe they're just a younger kid or whatever in that age bracket. They just don't have it yet, and just kind of you can keep that spark going in them, right? It's like, hey, like we're really excited to see you next season or at the next tryouts, or there's this team, or like I hope you go back to your high school and just say kill it there, try out there.
Right. Encouragement, like yeah. Well, sorry, I should say too, I don't mean when I say best players, I don't just mean the best skilled. I should qualify that. Attitude is a huge part of it. Like if I see a jerk in a tryout who's a great player, I might not pick them because of the attitude. And I'm sorry, that's life, right? Yeah. When I see a jerk, I don't want I know that player's toxic, and coaches don't look for that. Right. And we just had a conversation about this before the show. Like toxic attitudes never succeed in the long run. It's impossible to succeed because you're literally doing it for the wrong reason. Like you're training for the wrong reason. You're playing for the wrong reason, and you will fold the minute you hit adversity because your ego is wrapped up in it. Right.
And no high level coach really wants you anyways because it's just going to be a nightmare.
And they see it right away. It's funny. I was talking with a high level assistant coach today at the tournament who he coaches with, formerly Ryerson TMU, legendary local coach, not local coach, national coach. Formerly. And he said to me that the reason why they're so successful there is because of the attitude of Dustin, the head coach, and that there's a seemingly non-competitive. People think what they do is not competitive enough because they actually take care of players. They let them have a week off, mental health breaks. They might lose a match because of that.
Right.
They might, and they'll let a coach take time off if something big isn't happening in the family. There's a real humane approach to it, and it's not competitive. And people think that they have it backwards, and yet they become the great team and they become the legendary, players, produce great players and grow their program fast. They're sort of rebuilding. Yeah. Last year they had a rough year. Now they're getting better again. And by doing what we get accused of this too, of being not competitive enough, that's garbage. The real competitive is actually kindness, non-toxic. It understands the long process.
You have that. Yeah, that was one of my points. It's the ramping up throughout the season, and I guess you can have it within the program itself, but also like within each season, you want that ramp up for playoffs. I mean, that's where
where you want to peak.
Yeah, because I've experienced it where we ended up like peaking like 2 weeks before.
Yeah, premature peaking.
It's not. It's embarrassing.
It never happens. Yeah. It's never happens.
And that's what things like that is what you have to do. You have to allow them to take some time off, or like kind of, I guess you're just being aware of your players and whatever, right? And so when it comes to playoffs, then saying the word is so funny now. You want them to peak right at playoffs.
Yeah, no, it's true because it's mentally, like, right? The mental
and strategically,
it's physically everything. Like
everything,
And if we've had that. And
get them well rested. I mean, we've all had this before where you're playing like crazy.
Or a tournament where your team does really well in the semis. Like come back win in the semis and then nothing left.
Sometimes like as a player, because some of these programs you're playing so much in a week. You're playing like 4 practices and you're training on the same day, and then you're playing on the weekend. So it can get really exhausting.
You have schoolwork.
So sometimes we've all experienced this where you somehow end up getting it's usually through injury or something, or like a slight injury, you end up taking 4 days off, or you're just doing a lot of this restorative stuff, and then you get put back in the next game, and you're just like flying, and you're like, oh my god, like, it's like,
was the
oh,
break.
I got to sleep, I got to like rest, I got to do all this stuff. So
Cry alone in bed.
yeah, that really helps actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Or the toilet. Crying on the toilet, I find helps. It's happening more and more as I age.
It's a way to get things out, right?
Literally, yeah. It's more wincing. Anyway, yes. So picking the best 12 athletes is good. I think so. A good practice for coaches at the start of the year is a letter or an email. An email is probably more practical today, right? Well, nobody sends letters, but definitely.
Well, I mean, that would be.
Oh,
really
that would be
impressive.
heartfelt, though.
Yeah, it would.
You
I
gotta
would.
imagine.
Handwritten,
that.
handwritten.
Oh my gosh.
Handwriting.
yeah.
Handwritten handwriting.
Little calligraphy.
No
if
one
you have
would
a
understand it.
if you have a calligraphy pen,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
carrier pigeon, nice little touch.
That's right.
I didn't get my letter. What? No, an email to parents about mindset, emphasis, and on like building people. The emphasis will be on building people and developing all players. I think if you send a letter to parents at the beginning, very open communication about who you are as a coach, and hopefully, so this is, I guess it is advice for a coach. Send the idea that you are there to develop people. Not everybody on this team is going to be a professional athlete. Newsflash, spoiler alert. So we are wanting to make sure that they leave here better people and better players, but the two are linked, right? It's like we just talked about with toxic players. It's very rare that a toxic player stays a great player. They might be higher level at certain age groups, but they're not going to be a great player, and they might not be a great person. So if you're a coach, if you can send that letter that's the emphasis for your team, it also lets parents decide, nice and early if they want to leave. If they're not on board with that, if they're not on board with that,
imagine they leave because they know their kid's toxic, or they wouldn't. They would think
they might just not like equal playing. Like, they might think that
they
you're
would
gonna
perceive
play.
it as something else. Yeah,
Yeah, they'll think that
like,
the coach doesn't want to win
because they're arrogant, and then if they are, then their kid is, and then they'll be like, oh, this isn't good enough, and they'll put it under the excuse of that, oh, this club isn't up to our level, or
they're too
something like
they
that.
won't
this
understand.
This is a developing team or club, or
They won't understand that winning in the long run means everybody's better.
Yeah,
That's literally the way it is.
well, then that's just one of the strategies for the coach, and that's something they should do to have the ultimate season, is addressing toxicity, and that's a great way to do it by starting the season off early. You're already you're letting them know what you're about, what the season's going to be about. But then
I think even the tryout, like if they have that philosophy of every spot is open here,
it sets a
that
standard.
sets a tone. Yeah, that sets a nice tone. That's why. Yeah, I think that's important. So, Meach, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, that swings into what I was going to say is, in terms of having preparation. Like, I think the number one thing is, instead of just going into a season where, okay, you're just going to wing it, everybody's kind of not knowing what's happening, set that preseason meeting and say, hey, this is what I'm about. This is my background. This is my expectations of the team. This is my expectation for the parents. Okay, that's a coach that cares. So that you can know exactly what's happening. If you're late, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah,
you can even design it where I lead by example. Whereas, let's say, for example, if I as a coach am late, then you guys will get a little chance to take me through the ringer and give me the drills or give me the laps or whatever it is. So
that's fun stuff for players too. They like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's a great one because you really put the emphasis on team. And I know a lot of people say, well, the coach is already has a different thing. They're adults. They have kids. They might have whatever. But it's a great if you say that to your team, right? And how many coaches really are late for practice? It's very rare.
Yeah.
Right.
So so you might never have to do it. But if you do, the team will love it.
Yeah.
And they will respect you more. That's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah, leading by example.
Yeah.
So when the parents are late, you can just you make them do touch 10. You just
The parents
smash volleyballs at them.
Right.
No, not the parents. The coach. But but you should. Yeah, maybe we should get the parents.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
I mean,
you're running laps with your kid.
You can get everybody involved.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a long thing. But if the
Yeah.
coach is late, then the coach says, I admit it.
That's
I was
huge.
late.
Yeah, actually.
Hey, all right, what and get a standard of what the punishment will kind of be,
Yeah.
and have it
Alright.
be equal amongst players and
Or
the
relative
coach.
relative to the coach.
Yeah, relative
All
to
right,
their
coach, you're
history
pushing
of,
boards, but I have a
of
heart
injuries.
condition. Too bad. Should have thought of that before you had your car breakdown.
That's right.
No, that's a great one. Love it. Involve the coach. It makes it more fun too.
Yeah.
So I said, communication at the start is important. I like the idea that I like to stress the idea too, and I think a lot of coaches do, especially on the age of the kids, that the players should be willing and open to communicate with the coach. Now, this is a tricky one because a lot of coaches set up an air where they wonder why players don't. How come your parents are emailing me? And maybe it's because you've set a tone where the kid feels terrified to say anything to you. So understand that, we get the communication from the players, coaches, like coaches listening, you get the communication that you attract, right? Like I know, like, when I was teaching and coaching, players could talk to me about stuff. In fact, they told me things I didn't even want to hear sometimes, but that's because there was an air of they
openness.
could, they knew that I wasn't going to judge them, and they knew that there was, stuff, that they needed to tell me. And that's a tone that you set. So all of this stuff that we're talking about, like what you said, like imagine that coach Meach, like what you said, the coach that does that thing where
Leads by example.
Yeah, leads by example and gets punished. Like the player is definitely going to want to know they can tell that coach something, right? Because they're on the same team here, right? That sort of vibe. So
That's right. That unity, that feeling of, I don't want to say teamness, but
we're all in this together.
It's trust,
That's
right?
right.
They trust in their coach.
That's right.
Kumbaya, my lord. Kumbaya.
Oh, I missed it.
Kumbaya, my lord. Okay, I think people and we're back.
All
Sorry,
right.
I would take this out, but I'm just not that good at editing. So,
Yeah.
sorry, folks. Well, you have that 10-second button, don't you? 10-second
Just like
It's
before.
usually
Toggle.
15?
toggle 15. Yeah, whatever.
Something like
I think the more you pay for it, the longer it gets.
that.
Anyway, toggle's a funny word.
Toggle.
Toggle.
Buggle.
One of the things, like basically as establishing what's happening in the beginning of the season, is I would highly recommend the part where you're telling parents that this is how I coach. I'm the coach, so we can't all both be
This
doing
sounds
it at
very
the same
aggressive.
time, right?
Oh, yeah.
Trying not to laugh.
So
Yeah.
basically,
I'm the
don't look
Sorry.
for to be coaching me or players while I'm coaching the game. If you want to speak with me after 24 hours, if you want when things have kind of calmed down, we can both look at things rationally.
Right.
That's the time at the beginning of the season to let parents know that, hey, we can't both coach the same time.
Right. Yeah, that's a great one. And that should be in that letter, right? The idea that 24-hour wait period, if you're upset about something, that's a policy that a lot of organizations adopt. Don't send that email. Wait 24 hours and then send it.
Yeah.
Or don't come up and talk at the tournament necessarily. I still think though that if you're doing it right,
You shouldn't get in that situation.
well, I don't think. I mean, I've had parents
Less
come and ask me
likely.
questions, but again, it's that air of yes, no, I'm willing to answer. And here's the other thing too. Like this goes back to so many things, and it's hard to just make a coach know it. But if you can't answer why you're doing something as a coach, and like I've had so many coaches and seen so many coaches who they're telling players illogical things. And they're making the team do illogical things that don't work from a volleyball perspective. They don't work from a life perspective. And they just stick with them. And then they're like, trapped in that viewpoint, regardless of evidence. So coaches, honestly, you should run down a list of things. If there's a thing that, and this is something you learn as a teacher too, like if there's a thing that keeps coming up or the evidence, every year people nag me about that. Well, there is some, no, so it could be that they don't know. It could be that they don't know what they're talking about. But then again, you should be able to answer them easily.
At least by the third year.
Well, you should be able to from the first year if you're logic based. So that's the thing about where parents, like, I like that idea of, like, I am coaching the team, communicate with me if you need to privately. But the more, every year I coached, I didn't find that I had a lot other than those, a conversation with a parent if they asked a question and I had an answer. And so many coaches don't want to answer. Yeah. And then they go run in social media and complain about parents today, players today. They're so entitled. Well, maybe you're the entitled one. Maybe you're the one who can't handle the discussion. Because what's your answer? Like, because it shouldn't even be an argument, right? Like, if you have a good answer that's legit, based on reason, logic. Okay, your kid's not showing up. You missed practices. They're just not there yet. You're right. Maybe I should get them in more. But these coaches that try to win, I don't know. Like I said, if you're benching players that are 15, 14 years old, 16 years old, and never letting them play in a match, like I think there's a time in a match where you can get every kid in. Yeah. Blowouts.
Yeah.
Second sets.
Yeah. Second sets.
Like, you're gonna go to the third. Put your best 6 on then if you want. Let them in. Especially
if you're that not confident in your teams, like in your ability for your team to compete, if you're that worried about, I don't know, locking up the third set or whatever, like, I don't know, just like
and even if you are ultra competitive, even if you do want to lock up the third set, go for it.
And that's just
but
it.
Just get them in,
and
the
you
game.
never know. Like, you never know what's going to happen. The other team might just like really step their game up, and that second set you'll lose anyways. Or like, you just don't know. So,
or some of the players that you think are not good might show you something. I see that happen. I see a lot of great warm-up hitters, we call them, right? The players that look great in practice, and then they fold in games, and then you have the opposite. You have some kids that are like, wow, I had no idea.
That's just a rule, or universal rule. Like, the people who are on the bench, maybe not all of them, but some of them, they're building up that drive and that kind of ambition. They want to be on the court and they want to show you something. Of course, they have the problem of nerves, which you need to address by giving them those icebreaker moments. But while they're watching their teammates, make great plays, or they make the great play, and then their teammates on the court and off the court are cheering them on. That's what every kid wants to feel. That's what every person wants to feel, right? So
motivation,
So and it's just building up. It's just building up while they're sitting on the bench, so you can take advantage of it. Just knowing when to do it. But the more you practice that, you'd be like, oh man, maybe I changed too many players. They changed 4 of the players. Maybe next time go 3 and 3.
Mix in the good with the like the starters with the non-starters.
We talked about this and the composition. Like, maybe that hitter's better with this setter or vice versa. And then so just try it more, and then like anything, you'll get better at it. But
I like that you mentioned especially the word the exhibition matches. There basically it's another chance to look at what players can do, not to show off what the current level that you're at, but it's a chance to exhibit what your team has. So if, for example, if you're playing everybody in exhibition,
it's
right?
pronounced exhibition.
Exhibition. Basically, when you show up when it matters, you're going to be that much prepared to kill teams because you've got your stuff together.
Even your backups.
Yeah,
like
that's
the
right.
full 12, right? The full 12 are ready to go, and if there's an injury, you're okay.
Imagine that other team that says, "Oh, you know what? I've seen them in exhibition. We're gonna kill them."
Sorry, seen them in what?
Exhibition. I think I said that.
It's pronounced exhibition.
Exhibition. Exhibition.
Meach is from a faraway land. He's from the country of flexibility. Remember that word?
Strength.
No, strength. Flexibility. Flexibility is a word.
Get
Zuby.
it right.
Last episode. You have to listen to it now.
Yes.
That's a callback. Anyway, that's a good one. Yeah, just the team. It's a good chance for players to exhibit what they can do, and also exhibit it.
Yeah.
I've always seen those games as strategic opportunities, like preseason tournaments, exhibition games. Now I have to use the word exhibit. I'm not going to, but yeah, I've always seen those as opportunities, right? Where your bench should, or not even necessarily, you don't even know what your bench is at that point if it's preseason,
That's right. Yeah.
So it's all in flux, and you don't know. You're gonna find some cool combinations. There's always stuff like the double sub, the infamous double sub, where you're basically swapping a setter and to reset your setters now in the front row to put them back in the back row, like so stuff like that, like cool little plays. But yeah, it's just it's an opportunity. So take advantage of it because
experiment, right? Yes,
experiment. It's getting weird. There's no H in experiment.
No, there's no I in experiment. All right, just remember that. Everybody's spelling at home. No. So yes, I like the idea of having the players sort of initiate more communication. Hopefully, you don't have the parents, wanting to get a hold of you desperately every day, because that's a bad sign.
That's a bad sign.
If they're flashing the bat signal in the sky, you're like, oh, geez, again. Anyway, okay, stress the idea. Okay, so another one. Sorry, we're cutting off my list.
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
You were building momentum.
Well, you just sort of you sort of were.
You're gonna
get building up to the.
You're gonna get blue balls if you don't.
Whoa, Erik,
huh?
Erik. Volleyballs are yellow and
different
blue.
Yeah, they're
colors.
yellow and blue. Sorry,
There's different team colors. Is what you meant.
Yeah,
you're gonna get.
Erik, come on, it's volleyballology, not. It's not. Effing. It's not. We've gotten really good at editing
and
here.
Press the fast forward button.
Okay, yes. So, sorry, should I keep going or?
Yeah.
Just because I'm sort of building up to the
it's
highest point of ecstasy.
Wow.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think ideally a team would have 2 to 3 practices
I'm
a week.
still laughing.
Yeah, 2 to 3 practices a week, and one of those would be like a training day, like a stretching, flexibility, lightweight stuff. Like you don't want to do heavy weights in the season.
Where are you gonna get the weights from?
Well, no, it could be like body weight stuff. It could be like, sort of, I don't want to say
bench
like,
blasts.
yeah, knee stuff, flexibility of ankles and
need
knees,
weights,
and you don't need heavy weights to do that stuff. So some sort of training day or bands. You can tell the kids to bring in some bands, a yoga mat. Yoga's great too for players, right? For flexibility, injury prevention. But I think ideally, now that's like ideally in a real world scenario, but I think in a dream world scenario, I think I would want to have 5 practices a week for 1 hour. That way there's frequent reps.
Well, yeah,
more touches, and over the course
4
of
or
a year,
5.
so they're getting 5 hours of reps every week versus the team that's getting, maybe 4 hours, maybe 6 hours, but there are also like a lot of empty time in there. Whereas if you do the 5 1-hour thing, the beauty of that is everybody shows up and it's an hour of go. Let's go. Touches. And, in volleyball, we know this. You take like 2 or 3 days off, your passing gets worse.
I think yeah, I'd say that's good, but it's a little more than an hour a day because hopefully you're going to warm up.
Yes,
so it's like,
yes. I know, yeah.
And you're not talking
but
about
I like some of the 2-hour.
Right?
But no. But remember, what we're talking about here is I don't want these athletes to be sore.
I know where you're going.
Yeah, because the soreness. Because if you go too long, if you go longer than an hour, then you get sore. Like look at my kids, right? Like sore, not risk of injury. We don't feed them, but that's we want to keep them light, just in case that whole jockey career turns out.
Yeah,
right?
that's a good idea. But then again, ideal situation, they're doing an ideal warm up and cool down, because then for sure that's going to work great, and they're actually being fed and they're sleeping and
yeah. Well, there's more time to go home and sleep, and your homework and life and less stress for the kid. I'm just saying in an ideal scenario, I bet you any money that would work really well.
Just and you're not talking about the whole season.
Yeah,
no.
Of 1 hour practices.
Maybe, yeah.
4 to 5 next week.
In a dream, I know it's not practical for parents, and I know it's not practical for facility. I know it's don't write us letters.
Yeah.
All our viewers are gonna
take 24 hours.
Yeah, take 24. Unless tell us in the YouTube comments if you think that. Anyway.
Well, because if you're playing games on the weekend, like it can also work pretty well if you're doing like 4 2-hour practices, but like it's 2 practices and then the third one is like a lighter one, or even the one before the game.
Imagine if you have 2 or 3 scrimmages mixed in. Scrimmage days.
Yeah. That's yeah.
Because how many of us, that night before a tournament, you might go out and do an hour of somewhere playing in some league or something, and then you kill it the next day because you're like just going, right? But not sore. You didn't overdo it.
Yeah.
just those little touch. I find we have that with our youth leagues. Like they're on Friday nights, a lot of them, or even Saturdays, and the kids come out and then they have a tournament the next day and they play like gangbusters because they're just
current.
Yeah, and there's no soreness. The lactic acid hasn't happened. They're just sharp, right? Passing.
Lactic acid is good though.
Oh, it is, but lactic acid can turn into soreness the next morning, right? That's what, if you don't do a good job of flushing it out and cooling down, then that soreness can kick in the night. If you do a 2 hour the night before practice, or a couple big ones during the week, you might be sore still by the next practice because most young athletes aren't good. I'm talking club level, right? Varsity teams are better now at getting kids to clear out the soreness and cool down, like we talked about in that other episode. But with kids, like if you had 5 1 hour practices a week, a couple of those are skill based, a lot of those are high rep stuff of like repetition. Like we'll suppose hour of passing practice, hour of serving practice, couple scrimmages mixed in.
See what in that situation, what the good thing, again, it's ideal, and like there's a lot of good things we can take from this, is that you for this to work well, you will be developing these good habits of warm up, cool down, and in the cool down and stuff like that, you're getting into like the foam rolling, stretching, all that stuff. Like if you're building that, like the more you talk about it, and then the more you do it in a week, the quicker that habit's going to build.
And the less you'll need the foam rolling, by the way.
Yeah. I'm just using it as an example because it's I don't know how effective it is, but it's just a good way, regardless of its effectiveness, you're taking care of yourself while you're doing that, right? And then as the more you play and the more you use the foam roller, you'll be like, oh, this doesn't really work that well. I'm going to do this. This is part of my cool down now. Like each player has different things they need to work on after. Hitters need to definitely keep their shoulder open and stuff like that. And liberos, do they even have to stretch or do anything afterwards? They just I'm just kidding.
We just lost the libero crowd.
Whoa.
Erik.
Setters need to stretch their fingers afterwards and
stretch their fingers. I think they boil their hands.
I think they do this.
They boil their hands. Yeah, they boil their hands and they
Shout out to my bearded buddy Gibby.
Yeah,
he's never sore
because they don't do anything. So.
Yeah, they just don't. They just run around and flick their wrists.
Oh, jeez.
I'm kidding.
We're just jealous.
But yeah, like from that, there's good habits, because the downside to that is that if you're playing a lot and you're not on top of those good habits, you are going to trigger chronic stress injuries.
I don't think so. So I think chronic stress injuries happen from the long practices.
No, but if you're doing, I'm just saying, if you were doing these 5 1 hours, right, and you're not doing these proper warm up, cool down stretches and stuff like that, right, and you're just, but in what situation would you not do that? Like you're obviously going to warm up. You're obviously going to warm up, but if you're not stretching and stuff like that, and you're doing, you're not going to do 5 hitting practices in a row or something.
No. The ideal is like, so the whole thing, where I'm getting this from too.
I know where
the MMA trainers, like, so like there's a story of Russian Olympic wrestling team versus U.S. Olympic wrestling team. I don't know if I told you this, Meach. Where the Russian wrestling team at their peak was doing these short, light practices, much shorter each day, every day. And they were, as opposed to the U.S. wrestling team that was doing 2
with moments of intensity. Yeah,
moments of intensity. Yeah, just sort of like it was grappling and stuff, right? And they by the time you ended up the year, the amount of days lost by the teams that were going gangbusters because of soreness, recovery, injuries they lost so much time because they were just breaking their bodies down in 2-3 hour sessions, whereas shorter practicing wrestlers on the Russian side were not injured much because they weren't ever breaking down things. They weren't breaking down body parts. They also trained their bodies, I imagine, to just get ready faster.
And they ended up with way more total hours on the
hours.
mat.
Yes, total hours. Yeah, and not just because of, like, even in my scenario, my total hours might not add up to, like, if it's 5 hours a week versus 6 hours a week. But when you factor in soreness and, like, even I see my kids, like, they're not ready to go. Like 2 days after, like, that killer practice day or a tournament day, they're not ready to go, but they're out there, and they're probably taking it easy, versus if they had the 1 hour per day, they're ready every day. Like, there's a lot less to be sore. Recovery time is reduced. So that's what I mean is, like, I think that in a dream world, I think that works well. I know it's impossible, parent schedule, but I'm just throwing that out there just to be a dick.
Whoa.
Sorry, I mean a detective.
Blue balls now.
I was talking about detectives.
Yeah.
I have a detective background. Okay.
Inspector Gadget.
Stop.
Was he a detective? He was an inspector.
He was an
sorry.
inspector. Yep. Officially, that's what it said on his resume.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So and then I'm sorry, but the ideal coach is using a 6-back system. There, I said it. Okay.
Ooh,
if you're using anything
nice.
other than 6-back, forget it. And I
thought that was just assumed.
No, it's
Did they not read the disclaimer at the start of the show at
No.
the bottom?
It's not assumed. You can't assume anything in the club world. I mean, believe you me.
They're not using the W, are they?
No, they're not even using.
Oh, no.
Sometimes they're using like this weird shifty slide thing where the whole the left side slides directly back to
The grapevine?
dig, and then the other one, I don't know. It's all weird. But anyway, so here's why you need to use a 6-back. I'm just gonna say this right now. We're gonna do a whole episode
Your
on this
face
probably.
just got really.
I know.
Did you,
it's
did you
all.
fart and smell your
Yeah, I'm
voice?
very angry.
You're just like
No, because so you need to use a 6-back because if your players aren't where, so the beauty of the 6-back system is that defenders are where the opponents can crank it. Okay, so they're already.
There's another reason why it's great.
I'll talk about that too. But there's a reason. So the number one reason on defense is that your defenders need to be where the players can crank it, and players are spaced out effectively, so there's less confusion. Nobody's in each other's lanes. Okay. Because you can get to a roll shot in the 6-back system, but you can't get to a crank. So you have to be there already. So when you're teed up, when the middle comes to hit, in theory, that the tee is where they're going to crank it. The tees. If you're hitting cross court, if your opponents are hitting hard cross court at a left side, your player in 5 is lined up facing them cross court. Your other player has their foot on the line, defending that line shot. And everybody else, anything that goes over the block, 6 in theory, or the players who were teed up can get to that too. Anyway, so you got to use 6-back because the player's already there. Eric, what were you going to say?
Well, it has to do with the lane system. It's just a little more detail and in depth because I'm just comparing it to 6 up because what happens in 6 up all the time is that, in 6 they're up high and then 5 and 1 they're behind them.
6 is middle. For people who don't know, 6 is the middle back position. And 5 and 1 are the outside backcourt players. And
so when there is an outside attack, and even if they are in a 6-up position, shifting accordingly as they should. So if it's a right side attack, they would move to the right side, and there should be a double block. But what happens is that person who's now 6 and high, they're in a much worse position. But the problem is, the person in 1 in the situation would be behind them. And because they can't actually see them, they don't know where they are. So if there's a ball hit at that person, because they can't see them, they may go for it and they'll make a very ineffective dig. They may make a great dig every once in a while, but because they can't see them and they're trying to be aggressive because that's what you have to do in defense. And they go and they go for the ball and then they just can't make the dig proper. So because they can't see them, it doesn't work that well. But in a 6-back situation where the same attack from the right side, the defenders would shift to the right side. They don't have to. You can do 6 slide or whatever. But now the 6-back person is behind the person in 1, right? And so they can see on that hard-driven angle ball, again, or say it's not even the hard angle ball. It's kind of hit in between 1 and 6, both can go for it as they should. The crossover should happen if it's hit perfectly in the seam.
No, because that's a failed block then. So on a failed block, right. 6 has to charge the opening anyway.
You're right.
So
that's a single block.
No, but you're saying 6 swings back opposite corner almost.
And now if that ball, even if they can get it, they can now see that person in 1 who should.
I think this
is
very confusing for people listening.
Yeah, probably. It's just
bottom line
the
is
person in 6-backs can see their T defenders, right?
Yes.
They know what they can get and they know what they cannot get.
Yes. Well, here's another one. Here's a better one. So the problem with 6-up is that 6 is playing in theory sliding along the attack line, covering tips.
I don't know any of you guys name it. Well,
no. And the big problem is another major problem is you got 2 defenders behind them, like you said, and then you got a seam situation on every ball. I got it. You got it. And he shot deep down the middle, vulnerable.
Well, and really 6 up, all they can get is tips.
Yeah, that's what they're there for. Technically speaking, that's their only job is 6 slides, 6 to slide along the attack line. Their job is to pick up tips. And, any hard-driven ball down the seam middle or any roll shot deep down 6. It's like, I got it, you got it. They don't know beach rules. These players don't know about who's got seam in that play. Like, they might do it on serve receive, but they don't know it like a beach player would. Right. But bottom line is there's lane issues if you're not using six back. People, by the way, it's a very good thing to have everybody spaced apart because that way there's no I got it, you got it stuff.
Yes.
I see coaches use six back where the player coming off of left side to defend is standing right in the path of five. That's not how it works. They come off for short rolls and tips and hard cross court hits, like really sharp hits, and then five comes off the tee on an angle as well. They both come off at the same angle. We'll do videos about this stuff, but bottom line is you got to use six back.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can fast forward all of this, all of that. Go back, fast forward.
And another thing, which was probably mentioned as well, is that when you have your player in one, okay,
Position one is the
Position
serving location. Yep.
right, and then you have your player in five. If a shot comes off the block to the middle, then you have two people not knowing if they're going to get it or not. You take that confusion away by having a six back. It's definitely his ball
Or her ball.
or her ball.
You sexist
Forgive me.
bastard.
Wow.
I'll leave.
Wow.
It
I'll
just
leave
ramped up real
definition.
quick.
I think you're
Steve.
going to
be
get
him.
canceled.
Could be.
Anyway, yes.
Yeah. So you don't want to have two players not knowing what's going on.
You just want one player.
You
doesn't
just
know.
want one player not going to know what's
And
going
how
on.
often were you that player, Meach?
Never.
No,
Proud
okay.
to say.
We spent too much time on that one. That was
Mhm.
too long.
But
So-
coaches will understand it.
Coaches will understand, and
It's
that's
important.
it. Yeah, it is important, and coaches it's a simple system, and everybody has a role, and they're not in each other's way, and you'll get better if you're not using six back. Do it now. Do it.
Right away.
Yep.
Right away. Tonight,
Email the team now.
that's
Mhm.
right. You're going to use six back every single time.
Yep.
That's right.
I'm bringing sixes back.
Oh,
No, you. Well,
I don't know how to
we
go
can't
off
do
that one.
not
Justin-
real songs and get together on it.
I know.
Okay.
It was pretty good that you guys knew which song I was doing, though.
Yeah.
Are you ready? Anyway. Anyway, adapt as players improve. Another tip, a dream coach, dream season. They notice when players are excelling or improving or worsening, and they adapt. I see too many coaches who they like come up with their starting six, and they don't care if somebody's getting better. They don't see the improvement.
Yeah.
And they just keep locked into the same. I mean, it's the same with system too, right? They don't come up with a system that works best. I mean, we should say this too. There are teams, some systems, your attack system, your whole offense should be geared around what you have, right? Like you got to say, okay, I love running stuff like this, but maybe this team, maybe we need to tweak some things we're doing.
Yeah.
And same with playing. I see players that are just pigeonholed as the bench or the non-server. And then halfway through the season, some player develops some new skill, and they're doing it really well in practice. And the coach doesn't care; they don't even notice the players.
They have like
You
an
ever have?
expectation before, like we're going to be a strong left side team or strong.
Well, I
in the
mean that's
middle
a system. What I mean is specifically the real point is the players. Like
Yeah.
they don't care about player improvement, and they don't change things. Even if someone starts lighting it up, and a new player, yeah.
And something else that develops from that is that when you change it up, like mid-season, like say you've done the same starting six, what happens is when it isn't the starting six, the players will be like, did I do something wrong?
Right.
How come he's not starting me? And then you get that.
Right. The expectation is there.
Yeah.
Or
exactly.
how about this? When you do, I thought you were going to say when you do put in those subs, then everybody's deflated because they think they're going to lose. Because even the player on the court is like, oh yeah, we suck now.
Yeah.
Because I'm not one of those players. Like that's the last thing you want. Either the player feeling that something's wrong because they're not starting, because that's an
Right.
expectation. It's a entitled thing.
Right.
Or the whole team and all the parents watching like, oh, I guess we're trying to lose this one.
Whoa, yeah.
That's a
all
bad.
right.
That's a bad thing. You don't want your parents or
Are we?
players to feel that way, right?
Yeah. Are we done? I didn't know it was the end of season.
Is the season over?
Yeah, exactly.
Is this an exhibition?
Yes. and I can still remember having to compete, having to wonder right to the last minute if you were going to start, and that was kind of a
Yes.
challenging
Yeah.
feeling.
Well, we mentioned that with our high school team, right?
Yeah.
Our high school team had a bunch of well-balanced players, and it was a joke among us if we
Yes.
weren't starting.
Yes.
Nobody felt bad because it was just like, well, the next player is great too,
Yeah.
and the coach, would just let us. Well, one, we knew we all had a shot to play.
Right.
And you're on board with the coach's plan. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, because you feel like you're a part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
there's nothing worse than, we talked about this in every episode, but there's nothing worse than a kid who just feels like they have no shot
Mm-hmm.
of playing or performing, or they'll come on when it's like 23-10 for either team.
Yeah. How sad is it to have a player just automatically sit on the bench,
Yeah.
not knowing if they'll be in, not knowing if they're going to get a shot.
Yeah. Tell us more about that, Meach. What was that like?
It was horrible. It was horrible.
It's okay. Hey, wait. Stop making fun of those kids that are in that boat. Can't believe you said that, Meach. Awful.
So I don't want that to happen to anyone.
There's no need for it to happen.
No, it shouldn't, especially at these young ages where all these people think they're coaching pro and stuff. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got that. So adapt as players improve, avoid pigeonholing players. They always label kids. Here's another one I see that's a real problem in gyms. The drills never have a goal. So drills for a coach should always have a goal. It could be a number. It could be a race between sides. It could be, there's always a goal, because otherwise it's just endless, nonstop, no driven. It's very hard. You want to replicate as much as possible points in a game, winning a set, things like that. So I think we can all sort of, I don't think we need to go on about that, right?
Well,
Oh, you want to? Okay.
in terms of the season, there should be a mid-season goal, at least. You can have a few throughout the season, but a goal of how much did you learn? Not so much outcomes, where outcomes are going to happen, right? But if you focus on how much you're going to learn, then you can say, hey, we're progressing. Hey, we need to go a little bit harder on that particular issue or that particular skill.
Right. And those goals, like we talked about in last episode, are contingent on us. Things in our, like you said, not results based, not our opponents.
Yes.
Us, right?
Us.
Like, what can we improve on as a team? It's really important to get your players to think about what you're in control of, what they're in control of. Otherwise, that's what leads to anxiety. That's a definitive anxiety, right? Trying to control things you can't control. So, yeah, great point. You can have seasonal goals too. I'm just talking to you, like, I agree. I think that a coach should label. But, I mean, even in drills, in the mundane length of a season, there's nothing worse than a player going to practice going, we don't do anything. You know how many club players I hear say this all the time? Well, we don't do anything in practice anyway. We don't do anything in practice. And they practice, like I said, they're doing 2 or 3 a week. And if there's no desire to go, that probably means that everybody's going through the motions here. We got a gym, so we all got to show up.
Yeah. I'm here for the cardio and...
Not even. Like, honestly, they're just there. Like, there's
volleyball is not a cardio sport. What are you talking about?
He means the workout, the exercise.
I know.
Yeah.
Purely anaerobic. That's what I was going to talk about, but Zuby was building, so I didn't want to interrupt him.
I'm still building.
Oh, but you can take it.
It takes a while.
I'm just going to start talking.
Take a while.
Yeah.
I'm getting old, but I still got the
He's still talking.
Still longevity, I believe, is the word. Anyway,
there's the team dynamic. You can take advantage of that. Like, what do you think? Like, if you're coaching someone one-on-one, can you make as big improvements on one-on-one, or when you're coaching in a small group? What do you think?
I want a small group.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Because when you have a group, then there's this inter-competitive thing going on, right? So there should be goals, and this should also adapt, and this should change as you should always be kind of wary of where the weaknesses lie, right? And so as the season's going on, you can see that your defense, just digging hard-driven balls is not working that well. So you can now get some drills focused on digging hard-driven balls, and then the players that are kind of struggling the most, like everyone's going to be getting reps, but then the ones that really need some extra help, you can get these little, focus drills where all of a sudden it's just those 3 players in that drill, right? And then you have the other, however many, 7 or 10 or whatever, just shagging balls, cheering them on, like, and then it builds this really cool. I remember I improved at a bunch of skills in little micro environments like that, and they only take like 10 or 15 minutes, right? You're just getting a lot of reps, a really short amount of time, getting good feedback right away from the assistant coaches maybe watching, or the head coach is watching, assistant coach hitting it or whatever. But there's an advantage there to having the team, right?
Yep.
I would say even to make it even smaller, everybody needs a little bit of one-on-one time.
Yeah, that can, yeah, for sure.
It feels personal. You get a real relationship from the coach, and then you don't have to worry about others.
Like you mean taking the player aside in a practice kind of thing?
Like I think
exactly.
if you have the coaching complement for that, because like what are the other players going to be doing, right? Like
well, there could be a butterfly
they
drill
could be,
or something.
yeah, you're right. They could be doing that.
Yeah. No, it is handy to take a player. Most coaches do. They'll take a player aside. Good coaches will take a player aside and sort of talk about a specific skill. But you're right. Not all coaches do that.
Yeah.
And especially with those players, like there are some teams where if you watch the dynamic, like when I've been called in and worked with teams and stuff, like you'll see the dynamic where it just doesn't feel like that coach has any communication with that player. Like there's a few, I don't know what to call them. Like, I don't know to call them ghosts, but there's players on teams that are just not, like you can't see them in a room with that coach talk. Like you can't even picture them together. And that's a bad sign.
That's a bad sign.
Yeah. And it's common though. It's common in club world. And,
make time for each particular player as an individual, as well as treating them as a team member.
Yeah.
There's got to be some one-on-one just so that
chemistry.
you get to know the player. You get the chemistry. You get that bonding.
They know that you care, right? Like they know that you care if you take them aside for a kind word. And even like, I used to, like, this was a philosophy in teaching too. I remember my dad taught me this when I was starting out teaching. He said, like, most parents call home when there's a bad kid. So he used to make a point of calling home every now and then for good things to kids, even kids that were rough around the edges. Yeah. So imagine that parent, right? Like, hey, your kid was like really good in class this week, or they turned in an assignment on time, or they were really respectful today, or worked really well, showed up on time. Little things, and the kid would hear about that, and then the kid would like love my dad as a teacher, right? Because you're showing some confidence in them, and then they would perform for you. And I think that's what I've done too. I think that's sort of like I've noticed that. Like I kind of noticed the kids being left behind, like in volleyball and in school too. And I kind of had a good rapport with them. I think they worked harder for me because they knew that I cared, and so. A kind word from a coach goes a long way.
That's so true.
Yeah, especially to the kids that are struggling, like especially to the weakest kids on your team. Nothing better than taking a kid aside and saying, you're really hitting well, or your energy level is awesome, and it goes a really long way.
And even by saying thank you, that can really show that appreciation, that love that maybe they wouldn't have noticed just in a team environment. So.
Kumbaya.
I never had a coach thank me.
Kumbaya. Say that again. We'll sing in the background. We can do the speech, Eric. We're singing the.
Oh yeah.
So I never had a coach
thank me. But you know what? I kept showing up to practice, and then one day he just really acknowledged me, or she, or they, and then you know what?
Okay. We're cutting it off there. That was getting controversial. Well,
I said he, and you were going to yell at me for being sexist, so I had to say she.
I don't want to get political, right? I mean, that's Norm Macdonald's joke.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get political or anything. You'd say something that's totally not political. Okay, that's enough. But yes, things go that goes along. But so we were supposed to be talking about drills have to have goals. And we got on to give them a hug. No, don't hug the kids. Anyway, that's illegal. I don't want to get political.
I was just gonna say it.
So drills should always have a goal, and I mean as simple. By the way, it can be as simple as like hey, let's get
30 should have a goal.
30 perfect passes, or whatever, and then the team or we start again. That's a fun one. Like if you go like 15 perfect passes to 2.5, or and every time you miss, we start again, and the kids are like kind of loving that, because it gets competitive.
It's always awesome when they like get the perfect passes, the amount you want, and then you say, okay, we're gonna do it again.
Yeah. No, or you got to change that. You got to reward them. You got to reward them, and you change it up to something else. Or you make it so unrealistically attainable that. But
touch 10 drills.
Yeah, touch 10 is fun. Yeah. So lots of competition in drills. I like also the competition among groups. Like sometimes putting group versus group race to see who can get whatever or the most of this.
Well, yeah, like
wash drills with like point reward punishments. Even like I still think like coaches can do this stupid things like crazy punishments, but it is funny to like even end practice with a little 3-on-3, and the team that loses kings or queens has to like take down the nets or something like something like that. That's a fun little motivational thing. And the
following off that, it's just like it's non-traditional volleyball, non 6-on-6 or non-system based competitive drills where like they have to excel at a whole range of skills, right? Like so the 3-on-3 or like the 3-on-3 back row only, right? And then you can have some of your starters just show, they're not that good at that drill or something, right? And some of your other players are very good at it, right? And it's just a different way where you can compete so much more, and where effort really stands out. Skill is there, but your effort really sticks out, especially when they get to compete with their friends and against their friends.
Yeah. And like, so I do talk about that later too. Yeah. The idea that you're building the all-around player. So players get to pass, they get to set. Everybody gets to set. I think everybody on team should learn to develop hands, and these drills help do that, right? Kings and queens, 3-on-3 stuff. It gets kids doing every skill. So, one thing I really wanted to talk about was players forced to mix it up with new players. So this is how coaches can help control culture, by the way. So a dream coach or, the ultimate coaching season would have a coach that understands and sees that, okay, those 3 players are hanging out alone all the time. And these 3 players never talk with them. I might even see some dirty looks from this group to this group. So a good coach mixes it up. You have to play with a new person. You have to play with a new person. And so many coaches say that in drills, and then the same kids still go to each other and they don't notice. No, you stick with it. Be vehement about this. And then you make them, because what that does is it makes people bond with other players. Players they didn't like, players they might think are toxic. Get rid of that shit. Get them all mixing in. Force them to mix.
Yeah.
Because that's how everybody so a lot of
and set that early.
Yeah, a lot of coaches ask for things online. They're like, "How do I get my team to bond? What sort of team building thing?" You know what the best team building thing there is? You know what every corporation does in the world? They take them to go play volleyball to build corporate building. So you have team building. You don't need
already.
You don't need to go to Chuck E. Cheese, or you don't need to go to the to the bowling alley.
That's hilarious.
Take them to the volley and play these types of games and force them to play with new players. You'll have the best. Order pizza if you want to do a team building night, and have them play 3-on-3. Everybody has to play our queen or king of the beach, or king of the court, where everybody plays with different players all night and then keep score. That's how you build a team. You already have volleyball. Volleyball is the team building.
It's such an easy one.
Team building.
I know. I'm so sick of teams that always go team building. They all want to go like, let's go, what do you call it? Zip lining.
Paintball.
We don't need to do that. You have volleyball. Just change it up. Make it a fun day of volleyball. And I understand you want to get to a new setting, but that's what every business in the world is like. What can we do to build up the corporate environment? I don't know. How about we play volleyball? And then we're like, what can we do? I don't know. Let's go to a boardroom. No, they don't. Volleyball coaches just play the volleyball. But the key is you can improve team culture so easily by just watching who's peppering every day. I love it when I see coaches, they have like players peppering and then they shift. Everybody shift one.
Yeah.
Everybody shift one. Everybody shift one.
Yeah.
And then you do that.
You got to do that.
It's good. It's good practice.
And
it also lets some really weaker players pepper with stronger players.
Yeah.
Because you might think they're weak because they're peppering with a weaker player.
Yeah.
And then they go pepper with a good player, and then they look a little better to you. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, Eric, you were going to say something there, I think?
Well, it's sometimes like when you get good enough at pepper, your attacks are controlled enough that it's actually easier and you're not really being challenged. So playing with a player who's not as good, their attacks are a little unpredictable, their sets are. So you actually have to you actually improve at it.
That's a fantastic point. Yeah, because you're getting all sorts of balls from the type of player that mixes it up, right? Or that doesn't control it as well. So you're actually improving and getting that challenge by mixing it up.
Yeah. And do different, do your pepper. Huh?
I was just telling Meach to speak into his mic.
Oh. Speaking to your mic, Meach.
Well, I tapped the mic.
Do vary your pepper. Get it like close and then get it really far away. I always thought that was awesome.
Yes. No, it changes the angles. Everything.
Yeah.
Just remember, kids, I like that, Eric. Vary your pepper.
Ooh, very, yes. Sometimes
Very.
sprinkle 2.
No, V-A-R-Y. Remember, kids, vary the pepper. Put that on a T-shirt. Somebody put that in the YouTube comments. I don't know if I showed you guys that. Did you? Somebody said that if we ever sell merch, if we ever sell volleyball, hey, let us know if you want us to sell Volleyballogy merch in the comments. They said that we should use the phrase "play with no fear." Not bad.
Yeah.
So,
that.
so if we do that, then we have to send this person the first shirt, obviously, right?
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Meach's sister.
No, it's not. It's It's someone else. Someone else.
Hmm.
Unless she created a burner account. It's probably Meachy himself.
You know what? You know what I liked? Sorry, just to.
Oh, sure. Just to cut me off.
Well, no, just to finish the point here. Well, not to finish it, but to add a little bit more before you move on.
Put it to bed.
Yeah. Put it. Well,
Vary the pepper.
I'll say something and then
Just to vary the pepper.
You'll want to put it to bed because you always have the last word, right?
I'll sum it up.
Yeah.
Jerry
What's
Springer.
a drill we did that was great was like it's A side or B side, or we always called it starters versus the trenches or whatever. And like just
you were in the trenches?
well, it's good to get put in the trenches.
Oh.
You know
Is
what I
that
mean?
is that what they told you?
Well, talking. The reason I'm bringing it up is
No,
to
Erik.
put it is for mixing up players, right?
Yes.
So you can have your starters, but then you're gonna change 2 people on it or something, or just one.
Yep.
Just one, right? And then it's always, I don't know, the environment we were in. The trenches were always the hyped up underdogs because they had everything to win. The starters have everything to lose, and this is also ties into that no position is set.
Oh, okay, nice.
Right?
I love that.
That's why it was always a constant reminder, because then you can actually see someone standing out and then reward them.
There's a goal.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll start next game or something, right? And then that way, no one's getting comfy in their position, right? And then I just love playing the trenches game basically because like they would get so hyped up. I was never in the trenches. Let's be real. No, but
Erik was the trench.
The celebrations were just like huge, right? Whenever they got a block or kill or whatever, and like it was awesome. And then when you put on the trenches,
just
and you
competition.
you try harder when you're over there because you got everything to gain, right? And then
that's awesome. That's a good wording too. No, for sure that anything where they can compete and have a goal, and it just makes the practices. But that's how you avoid that going to practice with no desire, no fire.
Yeah.
So I said a good one, like, so it's connected with that one too, is I really think coaches don't do enough, especially in the club world. And school, I think schools are better if the teacher is a coach. They might not be an X's and O's volleyball person, but they are better at stomping out or stamping out toxicity. Mm-hmm. So I just find that coaches aren't really aware. Like, I've seen coaches just so detached from what's happening with their teammates. Mm-hmm. With the team members, and a lot of it is because the coach, like we talked about in that other episode, were inconsistent rules, right? So coaches, if you have different rules for like some players as opposed to others, your team is toast.
Yeah, and the longer it goes on, the less likely you're going to be able to stamp it out, right?
And it just odds are the longer, like, you're not going to stop it to, like, you know, some coaches might try to have a meeting later on, or a team meeting or a parent meeting, but it's already too late because you've already created these divisions. And the players, if the players will resent each other unless you come up with. By the way, so I don't know if did I have that? Is that later? Oh no, yes, that comes up. So this is how you avoid it. So this is like a simple teaching tool that we would learn and I would use back in the day. I don't think they talked about it much in teaching today, but one of the best things, and even for parents can do this with their own kids, by the way, when I was counseling kids and parents, I would give them advice. So if you're having problems with your kids, anybody, sit down with them. So you can do this as a team and have the kids come up with team rules and team consequences. And we're all sitting there, the coach and the players. And this isn't a way to like make the players feel entitled. This isn't a way to, the kids are coddled. Mm-hmm. What it does is the kids it's never you as the coach punishing them anymore. It's never you as the parent or the teacher. They can't argue with the consequence because they were involved in creating the consequence. So when we're all sitting down in a circle at a big chart paper or typing it up on something, right? Everybody's in their right mind. They're like, oh, of course. Yeah, if you miss practices, then you shouldn't play. Everybody would agree with that, sitting down in the area. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, if I don't have a good reason for it, what are good reasons for missing practice? Well, health. Yeah. Okay. What if I'm injured? Should I come to yeah, you should come to practice if you're injured because you can learn stuff.
Yeah,
right?
as a coach, you already have an understanding of what these rules should be, but
Yes.
you are allowing them.
You're
to,
allowing the players to
yeah.
be a part of creating and the consequences. So when it happens,
and
now,
it's so obvious and like logical. It shouldn't. Yeah.
yeah, it's just a great practice. I think people have forgotten about the hustle bustle of today, but it used to be pretty standard practice. Like teachers in elementary school, I don't know if you guys remember, they used to write these on chart paper, some classroom rules. We'd come up with them together, and then the kids would be like all in, and nobody argued when the rules were broken. And it helps parents stay on board too, by the way, because all the parents, if they're sitting there in this meeting and they agree, and if they don't agree,
Yeah.
then you have a nice public discussion, and everybody in the room knows who the crazy ones are. Let's face it, right?
Yeah.
You know, and everybody can. But also, you know what else comes up through these discussions? You might have some parent or some kid say something that you never thought of.
Yeah.
Or you might have a parent say something that maybe the special circumstance that they have. Like, you know, we were discussing that meeting. Well, my daughter or my son has this issue. Just so you know, maybe it's a health issue that might affect them being late. You never would have had that discussion. You know, you might have just punished someone unknowingly. So it just produces a lot of room for the kids to buy in, parents to buy in, and for information to come out sometimes, right, from people who maybe were not going to share it with you. So that's a huge one. That's if you're a coach and wants to have a non-toxic season, start off with that, and then make sure you stick to it. Right, be consistent with all the athletes.
Right.
Best player on the team, worst player on the team, because that's how you win people over, right?
Yeah.
Like if the bench players see you treat the superstar with the same rules, then they know they have a
you
shot.
have to.
They
Yeah.
know they have a shot.
Yeah.
They know that this is the right place for them. They know that you're fair.
Meritocracy.
Yeah, they'll trust you. Well, not so much a meritocracy as much as just in that case, it's equity, right? In terms of like, because meritocracy means like, you know,
you work hard, you get rewarded.
yeah, you could,
right.
it depends on what your definition of merit. I always say expand your definition of merit to include behavior.
Right.
Then you're good to go, right? But yeah, so there's that. I like we talked about 3-on-3 to help players develop all skills. I like to give players the speech on losers and winners. Speaking of toxicity. So I always tell people that winners build people up and losers tear people down because of their insecurities. So I like, you know, we were talking earlier before today about some players that, you know, like to stare down other players and act a little cocky on the court and insecure behaviors.
The winner behavior, even if they lose the match.
Winners, exactly. Winners in life, winners in the court, like just the idea that they build people up rather than like, I like to tell players, if you want people to believe that you are a confident player, don't act like a jerk.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that means you're an insecure player. By definition, that's what it means. Because a confident player doesn't need to make people feel like crap. This is true of all bullies, by the way, right? Bullies become bullies because they've been abused or they've been made to feel weak at some other part of their life, so they treat other people like crap, right? And we know this. So, you know, I like to give players this talk early on, you know, like what a winner does and what a loser does. So if you block someone and you scream at them through the net, that's a loser behavior.
Especially in your own practice.
Or even in an opposing team, right? Like that's loser behavior.
Yeah.
And I see so many. That's why when I see coaches tell their players to scream and be loud, and we talked about this before, it's very fake, very contrived. You want your players to be confident to be themselves.
Right.
And the minute you tell them to be a certain way, you're actually reducing their confidence by definition, because they're actually thinking, oh, I'm not good enough. I must act in this way. So, but to this point, just I like to give them the speech on what a winner does versus what a loser does. And you can see this throughout sports. If you look at any great athlete in history, look at the best volleyball players, hockey players, soccer players, basketball players. There's a class act quality there, right?
Yeah.
It's something when you can think of, let's say it's an opposing team, or it's just an opposing player, even on your own team. How good can you make someone feel if you can, basically high five them under the net? Let's say a guy roofs you, right?
Or a girl, you sexist bastard.
This is my example.
Oh, this is your example.
This is my example.
Okay, so you're in this example.
Does he have to say guy or girl every time?
He keeps
talks?
saying guy. That's the only problem.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems a little exclusive.
It's twice he said it.
Apply every single definition
You have
or
daughters.
story that I give,
You're poor
okay,
person.
to guy,
Oh,
girl,
yeah.
person, whatever it be,
Okay.
from now on.
So use the word girl then. You sexist pig.
Wow.
I won't.
Anyway, sorry. I'm
My choice.
Oh, anyway, yes.
Okay.
My
'Cause I-
my body. No. Anyway,
Right.
I don't want to get political. This show's very political. Okay, sorry, Meach.
But-
I cut you off.
Yeah.
if you
3 times.
can do that high five, whether you're the one that got roofed, whether you're the one that did the roofing, hey, I mean, that's something that can say, hey, you know what? There's no animosity.
Yeah.
This is something that happens in the sport.
Yes.
Hey, come at it again.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens. You know?
And it's confidence, right? When
Mhm.
I love it when I see a play like opposing teams after a good play, they smile at each other and high five each other, even if they don't know each other.
Yeah.
That's a great block, you know. And it
Yeah.
makes it's an interesting thing because even like some people on the other team that you think are like I remember in my life too, just playing against idiots, right? And if they make a great block on you and you go, hey, great block, and you smile, and they stop becoming jerks.
But yeah,
They like you more.
You don't
That's
know them
right.
until you in that moment. You
Yeah.
can be like, oh, they're actually
Yeah, they like you.
Respectful.
They like you more, and you like them more, and then you just destroy them.
regardless of liking, it's just respect and like
Yeah.
mutual competitiveness.
If
Yes.
you have them, like, it becomes that back and forth basically. Okay, you got me this time.
Yeah.
We're
Mhm.
still good, and that can really do something in terms of lifting up a game.
Yeah, it's
you
like the Nadal Federer
Mhm.
effect, you know, like in tennis. Like I just watched a documentary on Chris Evert Lloyd and Martina Navratilova and how they played each other 80 finals, and it was like, my God, it was the greatest rivalry in sports.
Right.
And they liked each other because the respect was there, and they weren't threatened by each other. They were raised up by each other.
Yeah.
Nadal and Federer are the reason, and it's very funny how they're so similar. Eh? Like I didn't realize I was a kid watching Navratilova and Chris Evert Lloyd play tennis, and
What era are these?
these are their 80s and early 90s, mostly 80s, like, even 70s. Sorry, 75 to like 89, something like that. And so like when I was a kid watching them, they were like the first female tennis players that like they made everybody want to watch. Right, speaking like sexist like Meach probably wouldn't watch, but open-minded, inclusive people like me watched. Yeah. Just kidding. Anyway, no, but I was a young guy, so I would watch all the tennis players, right?
The
And then-
women tennis players.
No, I'd
You
watch
sexist pig.
the male tennis players, but then Navratilova and Chris Evert Lloyd, when she married, they brought this rival, and so in this documentary they had this level of respect. They weren't threatened by each other. They were really good friends. And a couple moments in their career where they were like angry at each other because of who their coaches were.
Especially in tennis, though, some of your closest friends are your opponents because it's an individual sport, and like.
Well, a lot of players they're not
No,
friends
I'm not.
with their opponents.
No, I don't
yeah.
mean like
Yeah.
they're super close, but like they have that feeling of friendship when they're on the court because they're just alone on the
They're
court.
in it
most of
together.
the time,
Yeah.
right?
It's a
And
shared
then-
sense of
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the most familiarity is that opponent who you can't even talk to because they're so far away,
right.
but you're in that moment doing something you love,
Yeah.
something you love, right? So
But what I mean though, like, so they could have, like Nadal and Federer, for example, more contemporary example. Like Federer could have looked at Nadal and said, "Damn it, if it wasn't for this jerk, I would have like 50 Grand Slams." But he sees him as an ally and not as a threat to him, but as he's the reason why I was so great. So whereas if you're that toxic player, you would crumble under that. And that's why, so the knock on Djokovic in the early part of his career was that they felt that he was that toxic player. And it wasn't until he started to embrace the role and embrace the greatness of Nadal and Federer that he himself became great, because he got rid of that. Like, he still has the fiery attitude that turns people off sometimes, but he became great when he became not threatened by them, but motivated by them. And that's what great players do. They get motivated by other great players, and it makes you better, rather than a toxic, like, I hate, you're just toxic. You're just not it's just like stuff coursing through your veins that's not a winner.
And remember, we're all together to make this sport better. We're here to strive, to accomplish, to make volleyball the #1 sport in the world. And there's no way we can do that if we're not together.
that was good. That was a lot of
That
time.
was very good. That sounds like, I think we're doing the wrong show.
Yeah, maybe.
I think we should form a barbershop tricep.
Uh-oh.
Tricep?
Try.
Triumvirate? Quartet. Okay.
Tortoise?
Triumvirate. I think that's the correct term. Why don't you tell us what that is? Triplicate. No. Threesome?
Oh,
Wrong,
there's one.
wrong show.
You can play pepper with 3.
Vary your pepper.
You can vary the pepper.
Speech on winners and losers.
You can play pepper with
Early
4.
team communication about what different players need. Oh, remember we talked about this. So we're going to come up with this, I think, this guide for coaches. So the idea is, a great idea at the start of the season is to have a discussion on what players need in certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
So like some players love to be fired up, like when they're messing up, they like the come on, let's go. Other players can't stand that stuff. They don't want to be talked to when they're messing up. And it's not wrong, it's just they don't want to be they don't need the pep talk.
Yeah.
They don't need the advice. Like I do love it when I see coaches say like, come on, pass up. I was like, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were passing up right now. I thought we were going to go right to the.
Yeah.
I thought we were going right to the set.
Dude, I hated that for so many years.
Or it's like you
Like,
may as
what
well. You
the-
may as well just yell, "Come on, guys, play better."
Because then some of
Or
the players
girls.
start saying it. They're like, "Oh yeah, pass up." Like,
I know, and you don't want to hear it from a teammate sometimes, right?
well, yeah, because then it just shows that they're just parroting the
Power
coach
trip,
or
or they're
something.
power tripping over you. Like some players don't like it when teammates start telling them what to do. Some players
Yeah.
do. So you got to find that out. So that discussion is really important. And at the start of the season, it's really handy. At some high level team, like the national teams are doing this. They're actually communicating. What do you need after success? What do you need? It's like I know players that don't even want to. They don't even like to celebrate. Like they don't like
Yeah.
to smile. Like I was not a huge celebrator. Some of my teammates might. Like I was more. I get more excited about teammates. Like I was not running around the
Yeah.
court pulling my shirt over head when I would kill a ball. But if my
You
teammate did, I
can't
was
do that in
pumped up.
volleyball
No, you can't.
or soccer, really.
Yeah.
It might mean a little bit more one-on-one time, and coaches got to remember. Nothing worse than them not remembering what motivates one player from the other. Because if you go screaming at a player that
Yeah.
really doesn't like that, you're gonna
Yeah.
get some dissension in the team.
And you really see it on beach. Like when I see beach partnerships, you'll see like, personalities come through, and that's where sometimes best friends will say, hey, yeah, let's play beach together. And then they get out on the court, and because it's just so reliant on your partner,
Yeah.
and that partner's like, oh my God, I didn't know they were so loud on the court. They're annoying. Or the other partner's like, they get dead quiet
Yeah.
when they're sucking. I hate the energy. I hate the vibe. Or they go crazy over things.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting dynamic. It's same thing on the court. You're right. You can totally kill a player if you're coaching them in a way that they don't. And again, this isn't coddling. This isn't like I want to be coached this way.
It's
I
just
need
like
I like back rubs after I shank a ball. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about maybe that player doesn't want to hear it. They know what to do, and other players do.
and just like the rules, it was formulated in an open environment, so everyone's there when you're talking about it. So
Yeah,
it's not
this-
like you have to do one-on-one. It's just
Yes.
like, it's,
I think it's helpful to
So-and-so
actually
like
make it
this
a
way.
team discussion because that way
Yeah, that way
teammates know
yeah, it's
and coaches know.
But
easier, quicker to
they
do.
also might not want to admit how they want to be coached.
But yeah,
Right.
that's
Why?
true.
Why?
But you can kind of
Because the group dynamic might not.
They might not be into that.
Feel left out, or they might feel
Centered out.
Centered out.
Yes,
That's
you're
what
right.
I'm
Yeah,
saying.
you're right. Not a lot of people want to have that kumbaya thing. Did I say kumbaya?
Yes, you did.
No, that's
Kumbaya.
enough. Stop it now. Stop it.
wow. But yeah, that's true. 'Cause, I
Kumbaya
mean,
out.
it's really just the players who want to be like, I don't know, just be like, it's okay. Like if you get the kill or the block or whatever, and you're not a big celebrator, like that's just a lot of players are like that. So that's one way to reduce their fear of exposing it, because that's the only thing I can be afraid of. Like what would they really be hiding after I get a point? Like I don't want to.
Well, not. And I think it's more important what they do after if they're struggling. Let's be honest, right? Let's suppose you shank
Right.
two passes in
Okay.
a
So
row.
it's the negative.
But you're right.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
the positive is there too, because some players don't like it. Like they don't like the big production. But I think the most important one is what do they after a mistake? What do they like? Some players like the come on. Some players don't like the.
It's
come on.
also it's also changes in the game environment though, because sometimes you're the
Right.
quiet person. After the big point, you don't celebrate because you're in business mode, right? It's just going. But then when you're at that game, that playoff environment, sometimes you turn into that person.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But yeah, so yeah. That was my point. So I'm just trying to say you don't want to. It's not like it has to be set in stone. It's like, oh, you celebrated this time. You're not a celebration type. What's going on? Like,
Right.
yeah.
Yes.
Like
yes.
obviously it's
Yeah. Like Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, he's pretty much.
He was a quiet
business.
guy, but
Yeah.
he had his moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I got to say about that. That's what I thought Erik was going to say. That's all I got to say about that. I'll finish up my list. It's dwindling now. Early season team communication. Okay, so
Oh, would you say
clear
it's shrinking.
clear team
Is it
rules,
shrinking?
consequences. We did that. What's the big idea? What's the small idea? Lots of varied play. Oh, I think also too a team. A good coach in a dream season would schedule a lot of scrimmages, a lot of exhibition matches, exhibition
Yeah.
matches, and they would also a lot of tournaments. Right, and tell parents that the goal is to play a few extra. I think tournaments are where players really, get the motivation for practice. It helps them get just the reps in, right? So the more tournaments, exhibition, I think that's a good thing. A good coach will organize as much, and even our coach this year, we're very lucky. I have to admit, this is the first. So parents, let me tell you, we've had a nightmare experience in the club world with both my kids, and every year there's been something. But this year, the club team and the school team, not a lot of crap. It's been very, very good. Now that I've said it, it's going to go to hell. But, for the time being, it's been good. No. So, and part of the reason is that these coaches are arranging really good exhibition games, even with local college teams and varsity teams.
Big. That's
it's really good. Yeah,
huge.
and the girl and the team played much better against the higher level players. It was really good to see.
Yeah.
Even some players who weren't swinging kind of soft, a little tentative on their swings, seeing the varsity girls, in this case, varsity women's team, cranking it, they had no choice. They had no choice but to crank back. So it was really good for them. Sorry.
And those are kind of the times where you can really play free, because if you're doing an exhibition, versus a high level college team, club team even. That's when
you're supposed to
players
lose.
can just they're expected to lose, so you go for broke.
Yeah, it's the Rocky Balboa effect.
That's right.
Rocky was supposed to lose to Apollo. That's why he did so well. Plus, it was in the script.
Right.
And he wrote the movie.
Plus, he's a great fighter.
Yeah, that was real, right?
Oh yes.
Okay, so yes, scrimmages, turning as much as possible. Oh, allows middles to pass once in a while. Again, just one of other things that comes up all the time is, and this goes to that 3-on-3 thing. You got to let your middles pass, even in games. By the way, keep seeing the libero. This is the next point. Liberos should be used to sub out any players struggling passing. Don't automatically.
That's in the rules.
Yeah, don't automatically take it to the middles. I just don't like it when coaches are subbing out middles who are pretty good defenders, or middles who are great at playing six back, right? Or on serve receive. If your middle can pass and you have a left side or a right side who's shanking, don't be afraid to put in the libero for right or left side. It used to happen. It used to happen. That's why the rule was created. But we all of a sudden went just to middles because they're tall. They can't pass, which is just as bad as saying that player's short. They can't hit. So coaches in a dream season, you would allow the middles to pass once in a while, or even play defense, because let's face it, the player that you have at the club level who is a middle is probably going to end up being a left side or a right side outside hitter. 90% of them, right? Very few will stay middles. The tallest ones will, but if you're using that average height middle on your club team, if you're not letting them pass, you're setting them up for failure at the next level. So that's where the practices come in, the 3-on-3 stuff, right? Let's players take risks. So a dream coach in a dream season, you should let the players take risks in practice. Let them try the different angle hits. Let them try the different serves. This whole idea of taking stats in practice came up in our Good Coach, Bad Coach and our stats episode. If you haven't listened to those, check them out. You can't, the coaches that are taking stats in practice and then they're using that to guide who's playing, you're making sure that your players are going to serve as safe as possible because they're afraid to miss a serve. They're going to hit as safe as possible because they're afraid to miss hits. So that's not what you want. You want to take the reins off in practice. See what they can do playing free, loose, not afraid of getting benched because of a practice performance. That's the fastest way to make sure your team has no freedom in their play. So just let them take risks in practice. A great quote I love is Karch Karai. Again, if parents don't know who that, he's like the greatest volleyball player who ever lived, indoor on the beach, gold medalist, and now a gold medalist as a coach for the U.S. national team. The guy's a legend, works really hard.
A lot of Brazilians would argue that against that, but yeah.
I don't know if they would. Maybe like on the beach, maybe they would
Yeah.
argue, but like, you know, if you took Karch's Olympic career, indoor career out of it and gave him that 10 years on the beach, where would he be? Like, he's already the winningest on the AVP.
Yeah.
Where would he be if he had all that time on the beach? So, I mean, the fact that he could do all both indoor and beach and now coach, I think it's pretty much to bet. I mean, the FIVB named him as the player of the millennium.
All-around volleyball player.
Yes.
Yeah. And now coach.
Yeah, like he wouldn't be
Yeah.
the best middle or anything, or best maybe. No, just kidding. No, but yeah, so Karch Karai, great line that I always tell players too, that, and you practice like it's a game. So when you go to practice, there's nothing practice, and coaches, you can instill this in your players.
Mm-hmm.
Treat your practices with the same energy as a game, and tell your players, I want you to practice here like we're playing a game.
Which is why all your players need to experience playing in a game.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so practice like it's a game, and then you play like it's practice. So the idea is that when it comes tournament day,
Mm-hmm.
you want to be so
Yeah.
prepped in your practices and so regimented and so hardworking that the easy part is the performance.
Right.
And if you think about it, that's the universal law of success and everything, right? Like actors or business people, they go work their asses off behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
and then come the performance, the sales pitch, the performance, the whatever, they're relaxed because of the preparation that they put in. So
Well, when you're-
athletes need to treat that practice
Right.
like hard work.
And what you were saying earlier, like reins off in practice. You have to be able to do that in a game. That means all of your practices have to be in that way. Because ideally, that's how you should be playing in a game is,
Loose,
unleashed or whatever.
free,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
And
It's just
the intensity in practice, and real intensity only comes when you're loose, right? Like
yeah.
intensity can't be there if there's another thought in your head.
No.
If there's any preconceived fears or ideas or looking over your shoulder, like you said, Eric, in that episode, the players looking back at the coach, that's a red flag that they're not playing free.
Yeah.
Right?
You might even want to, on occasion, reward mistakes. If he gets blocked, oh, that was awesome. He hits it out. Oh, amazing. Because he went for it.
Well, that's 100%. That's sort of what I have next is like, you have to, I always applaud play. I've had a coach talk to me about this. He said, parents will look at me like I'm crazy.
Mm-hmm.
This is a high level player who became coach, when he applauds a kid or says yes when they swing out of bounds or swing into the net, because the form was right.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
The result wasn't there. But that's one of my points is a dream coach understands process and doing the right things. Like the result is irrelevant, right? The result is irrelevant now as long as they're
Probably
doing.
don't reward them when they get roofed.
No. Keep a bag of cookies. Keep a bag of cookies on the bench.
But that hit
and
that
then
just goes at the back.
Scooby
for sure.
snacks.
Yes, yeah. I'm
I mean,
often
unless-
telling players, if they hit it out, like nice rip, because on
Yes.
another circumstance
form was
that
great,
would have
yeah.
been
Yeah, and we do that with
Right, yeah.
teammates, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what we do with teammates all
Yeah.
the time. We're great swing,
Yeah.
right? Great rip, and that's what we do. And coaches need to do that too.
Yeah, if your
And-
players are doing it, why are they doing it?
Yeah, some
To
coaches
keep that.
Yes, some coaches will look at them and say, "Hey, keep it in."
Mhm.
They'll say, "Keep it in." I'm
Yeah.
like, "No, what are you talking about?"
I would much on 80% of the occasions have a player rip the ball, maybe hit it out, then give a team a free lob.
yeah,
That's
even if it
drives me
scores the point, even if
crazy.
it scores the point, right?
Yeah,
Even if they get the
even if
point on an
the-
easy bump, it's kind of like, really? Like I'd rather see you whale at that
Yeah.
ball, right? And miss. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, agreed. That's exactly one of the points I make too.
Exactly.
That coaches need to let players go for it, right?
Mhm.
Um, so another one that drives me nuts. So a dream season for a coach again. Too many coaches see skills as hierarchical, like they view certain skills as better than
Yeah,
others.
yeah.
So like
I know where
again,
you're going with
my
this.
kids spin serve, right? And so many coaches would say that stupid line about, well, you got to get 5 over, 10 over. I'm like, what are you talking about? There's not going to be a second one if they send over lollipops.
Mhm.
Like this is competitive volleyball. If the kid can do it, if they have the
Yeah,
skill,
yeah,
let
yeah.
them rip it.
Yeah.
And now she's serving 7, 9, 10 in a row, right? And it's like, It's kind of funny, by the way. Funny story today. The ref in one of the matches today was one of those club director that was the one about
They were the ref.
They were the ref, and the kid rolled out 7 aces in a row. He called her on a foot fault.
Of course.
And somebody said it wasn't a foot fault, so I didn't see. But anyway, no. So he must have known that was the issue. So if you in a previous episode, by the way, guys, we had a coach tell my kid that they couldn't spin serve. They weren't allowed to spin serve for some reason, even in a nothing game, even though she was getting aces. And it was very bizarre. And then this club director sort of chimed in.
Based on science. Must have
based on science. Yes. The science. And so it's just weird. And so that's what, but the problem was that coach saw a certain skill as hierarchical. Like a spin serve is just like a regular serve. It's not just because you view it as something super duper. It's not super duper to people. Go turn on YouTube volleyball. Nobody's looking at high level varsity players going, "Oh my God, you jump serve!"
But it's also
whoa.
It's also nothing like a float serve. So getting 5 floats over to spin makes no sense either. If they end up setting that.
And it applies to like the hard hitting too, right? Like hard hitting, like. Some coaches will say keep it in. No, the hard hit is a regular part of the game. It's just basic. It's not, I need you to get the roll shots in first before you can fully swing. What are you talking about?
They don't understand this, because if you're hard hitting and you're missing, you can now work on, maybe don't have that top spin going on, right? But if you're just like lobbing it in with no spin, well, of course you can't hit it hard.
You're actually delaying a player's ability to fix problems, right?
And it just goes back to the coach doesn't know how to actually help them further develop their attack or their serve.
And the coach probably hasn't played at a high level, so they think of these things as like I was baffled by this because I was a spin server my whole life. I still am, right? I popped my Achilles tendons.
And you still spin serve off one leg. It's amazing.
But that's all I do my whole life. So I never saw the spin serve as anything special.
Yeah.
The only people who would are the ones who've never done it or watch it on TV and think that it's whoa. So don't treat it as special.
If you see it on TV, it's like the standard of all serves.
Yes, it's standard, and especially on the men's side, right? But so here's an idea. Maybe if you stop treating it as special and rare, it'll become less special and rare to your players, and maybe you'll have a whole team of aggressive swinging, spin serving, hitting. That's the dream, right? So that's the dream season. So seeing skills as hierarchical is a problem. Teach kids to play with no fear. We talked about, stress the idea that only people who win in life or volleyball make a decision and go for it. That's connected to that too. Like in life, if you think about all the people who are high achieving in the world, in your circle and in sports, they kind of made a decision and they went for it, right? Everybody sort of talks about greatness, but they don't really do it and they don't really go for anything. And
it's kind of like me.
I think a lot of us are like that, right? Like I made a decision.
I catch myself doing that a lot. I'm like, oh yeah, that's how you do it. And I was like, wait a second, I have no real proof on that.
No, but you're young. You're learning, and it's a process. And I made certain decisions to go for things in my life, and they've and nobody I know who's done it ever regrets it. Like, so if like quitting your job and going full time into business, or trying to go play overseas, or doing something that other people haven't done.
Spin serving.
Spin serving. It's a microcosm of it, right? No fear. It always pays off. I want to say cliche, but fortune favors the bold. That's a saying that people forget. Like they don't really listen to what it means. Like go for it.
I play without underwear, and it's really rewarding.
Yeah, we can tell. We can tell. Yeah. It's hard to play behind Erik.
Just referring back to that hierarchy of skills, how often, I think, we're all kind of a victim to doing it, is when the rally goes on, it's like battle for battle, dig for dig, and everything else. Usually only the player that puts it away gets the reward. But what happened to that guy that pancaked the ball, made that awesome dig?
Or girl.
I told you
okay,
the rule for that.
You can call him on the third time. Okay, the first and second.
Sorry.
That makes it so that play continued. They often get that disregard, sort of.
Nobody remembers.
No one remembers.
But the players who know what was going on, they go and they congratulate. They're the winner in that rally.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, the player should.
Yeah,
the non-toxic player does.
The non-player is like, yo, that was a sick dig. Yeah.
That's right.
That happens all the time. no credit for the background work, the hard labor.
Yeah. So all of you girls and guys that made that tough play way back when.
Hey,
Kumbaya. That kumbaya was because of Meach remembering that this is, there's women on the planet.
Mm-hmm. There is.
The fact you emphasized it is actually worse.
Oh my
Goddess. Oh my
That was
God.
well done.
That was good. That was, you see, but it didn't occur to you. Didn't occur to you. Just kidding. Okay. So I really think that uses benches and blowouts and second sets. Coaches, we mentioned this earlier. Use your bench. When you're up by a bunch, get your bench in there, get them mixed in with some starters. It doesn't have to be this whole put on 6 players who are going to get their butts kicked. Mix in 2 or 3 here, 2 or 3 there. I still say if you're playing 3-set matches, put that second set, get that second set going, even if you want to start your starters.
You should be doing that in practice. It shouldn't be anything new and different and uncomfortable. It shouldn't be a surprise when all of a sudden you show up at a tournament and all of a sudden you mix in 2 new players. You should be doing this in practice with your trenches or your whatever, your rotation drills and stuff like that.
And it just it shouldn't be this. So if it feels like your team is going to lose when you put your bench in, then that's on you. How about that? Right? If your bench is that bad,
and that's why you're that afraid to put them in.
Yeah, you're only you've caused this problem, and now you're reinforcing it. So if your bench and all the parents go, and the whole gym goes silent when you put your bench, and you're feeling warm poop dribble down the back of your leg because you're like, oh, we're gonna lose this. That whose fault is that? Yeah. That means you haven't prepared some of them. Right, gotten them ready. You're not sprinkling them into moments. Look at pro coaches. Look at what they do. Look at the World Cups going on these days right now at this time. And NBA games. You watch, lots of they put the bench on at the end. Right, they call it in the NBA. They call it garbage time. Right, whatever they want to call it. The idea is to let the inexperienced players get a feel for something. Yeah. Even in playoff games, they do it. Right, big lead, put in the bench. We're losing by a ton, put in the bench, and that's because good coaches know that eventually these people need to be ready. And guess where your stars come from eventually? Yeah, they come from these people, right? They will be someone there is going to be a star. Again, Michael Jordan was cut from his varsity basketball team. I think Karch Karai was cut from he talks about that. He was cut from some high school stuff early on,
Well, there's a good thing. Make sure your team experiences some losses, right? So get them some tough matchups. Hope maybe in an exhibition match, against if they're a club team, play against a varsity team that's willing to kick their butt, or maybe they might lose.
Losing is good.
Yeah, so you have to make you should ideally in an ideal season you would want to get some losses in because been in that situation where you have an undefeated season and you go into playoffs and you just haven't seen that type of competition, then you kind of get wiped, right? So
don't just go through the season trying to rack up the wins. That doesn't help your team at all. No. You should be very concerned if your team is blowing everybody out. You better find, because it keeps them humble too, right? Yeah, keeps them humble.
Yeah. If you find yourself in tournaments where everybody makes playoffs, then hey, that's a grand opportunity to go for it, put everybody in, and then surprise the top level teams or whatever it is with what you got.
Yeah, a well-rounded line, and then your number 2 unit. By the way, other teams are putting on their second units. What if your second unit's just that much more ready to go?
Well, and this is like the ultimate end goal. If I were coaching, would be to have a team, my entire team, where when they're playing the match, they're not looking at me at all, right? So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's on the court, and the way I think you do this is by, setting them up as develop your rotations in practice, right? So make sure everyone knows these rotations.
Huge.
I just know that when I was young, they were really confusing, but you just gotta just work them over like repetitions and make sure everyone is in on it. And so that's super important. And then set everyone up to be independent operators, right? So they're individual leaders on the court, because there's always an opportunity to, it should happen passively, but you have to be active to get rid of toxicity, and then the team understands that, because it is a team game, that to stay on that level of momentum if there isn't any toxicity on the team, leadership should just naturally happen, right? So at the end of the season, if you can, doesn't matter who's on the court, you don't even have to say that much. You just put them on the court, and then they're working together, not even like looking at you, right? Maybe if they're in a really tough match and they sort of look at you for a timeout or something, but even then, like they shouldn't even have to do that. So that's kind of
because they shouldn't think that you're judging them. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Right? They're afraid they messed up because you've scolded them before. Like that's what happens when kids mess up. They look at their parents too much because there's no independence.
Right, and when they're on the court, they know that they are in control of their own destiny in that match. Right? It's like, why are you looking at the coach? The coach isn't a player. The coach can't do anything. It's you and your 5 other teammates. You're on the court in that moment. What's going on is a result. Like, you have control over that.
Yeah.
So, well,
you should feel that way. I mean, your coach should have you prepared to feel that way, right?
Yeah.
And remember, the players that do get the rotations, the plays, they get it already. So that's when the attention goes to those players that don't.
Yeah.
And I love what you said, Eric, too. Like, honestly, like the work in practice where kids know rotations and setup. I see that all the time where the sub comes in and they don't know where to go. And that's like, you have all this practice time and you're complaining about how boring practices are, or you're just working on passing and you're not getting you'll see the 4 or 6 that are the backups on the other side of the net and the starters are in all the time. And then you're not getting them all into serve receive setup.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason for that.
No.
Like, and it happens at the end of the year in provincials. You'll see or in state tournaments, you'll see like state championships, and there's kids that like don't know where to be.
And what is that going to do? That's just an opportunity for to feel unsure of what you're doing. All momentum's gone. Confidence is gone. It's it's
a self-fulfilling cycle, right?
Yeah,
like the coach has not prepared you to succeed.
Yeah.
And then they look at you, go, that's why I don't play them, because they don't succeed.
There's no excuse for that. That's
you've made
on the coach.
Yeah. It has to be at some point.
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
Okay, and then I'm just about done here, but I got. So I asked a couple players actually about this, and honest and direct. So this goes back to that idea that we talked about, where players, you need to know what they want, but some players have said that they really like it when coaches are direct with them, honest with them. So this has to be a trustworthy thing. This has to be a thing where you've told them things in the past and it's helped them.
Yeah.
And then if you're that person, they like you to just, like my kids, they like my wife will be like super nice and supportive, and my kids will be like, I sucked today, didn't I? I said, well, I mean, I said, like, you were probably tired and you weren't there today. You didn't have your best game. I noticed a couple things that you were doing that, affected your movement, or you're not switching fast enough or moving fast enough, or you're not reading this thing. And they like that because it's direct, it's honest. It's not, because if you dress things up or you don't, I have met high level, so I've worked in, organizations and worked with organizations where they don't like to tell the player what's wrong, like high level athletes, like elite level athletes.
What do you think was wrong?
Yeah, what do you think? Well, what do you think? And the player's just like, just tell me, just tell me what you're seeing.
I remember.
And I'm just like, and I'm sitting there going, yes, that's what athletes are like. Athletes, high level athletes,
especially in practice.
Yeah,
just tell me what you want. I'm sitting,
or not tell me what you want,
or
tell me what I'm doing wrong. But the only organization that wouldn't tell you what's wrong is the one that might not know what's going on. And they don't want to hire people. They don't want to pay people to come in who do know, because they're not very replaceable. Like, they like scalability, these organizations. So they don't want super technical coaches coming in, because then they can't replace that coach. They want to have an assembly line of coaches, and here's the manual. And we don't diagnose because then you're irreplaceable. So the problem is, so coaches, sometimes if you're a coach who has experience and has a good track record with diagnosing things, and your players have a good relationship with you, then it is very handy to be direct and honest with players, because then they don't trust you. Right. Trust works both ways. It could be trust. They can trust you by being they will lose trust in you if you're being mean and not fair, but they'll also not trust you if you're being too nice.
That's
right?
right.
Yeah.
That's
right. You guys did great today, and the player, the high level athlete, is pissed at themselves because they didn't think they performed. Right. Even if in a loss, like high level athletes, you want to get them to a point where they're honest with themselves. Our team won. I personally didn't play well, but I'm so happy our team won. Or vice versa. Like, our team lost, but I feel like I played well. That is not a selfish thought, right? That's an honest thought. And they want coaches that are equally as honest. Like, guys, like there's nothing better sometimes. We won, but we sucked.
Yeah.
We didn't do the thing, and the players will all nod.
Mhm.
Especially if they're high level.
No, yeah.
Right.
They're honest with themselves, right? The parents might not be like that. They'll be like, "Oh, what does your coach know? What does she know? What does he know?" There. See how I did that?
Nice.
Well done, Zuby. Good for you.
Just I'm just inclusive that way. I don't know. It's natural, but not everybody. I guess it's not for everybody. I'm pro inclusivity. I'm proclivity. Anyway. Yeah, so the idea is you can lose them if you're not direct, even in a critical way. So I said coaches should research. Dream coaches in the season should research if they haven't played, right? Use the resources that are out there. Watch some. I think the best resources, watch a high-level teams play. I don't so many YouTube videos, and there's so many things out there that just aren't the right advice, and they get so many hits, and then they go viral, and everybody assumes what they're saying is correct, but it's just because the person looks nice and has a great voice, like me right now, like me right now.
Oh, it's your turn to monologue.
Yeah,
What
sorry.
saying?
No, I'm monologuing enough. So lots of research if they didn't play, and reflection if they did, because not all great players know what they did or know what they're doing. And
Would you say lots of research if they
so
didn't
research if they didn't play, it's really good if you're a coach that can research a lot of things from people who've done more than you, right? And then if you're a player who did play, a lot of reflection on maybe why you were successful. Like you kind of have to think like that, right? If you're going to coach,
and at the same time, what mistakes you made. Reflection has to go both ways. Admit when you're done something good, something well, but also be able to reward yourself and say, hey, this is what I did right. I'm going to continue with those actions.
And I like what you said, what you did wrong. Like if you've done bad things in the like, if you made mistakes as a coach, that's nothing better. Like I can look back on my early 20s coaching. I didn't like it. I was that, too wrapped up in the result, my ego, outcome based, and I took things personally. I murdered a kid. No, just kidding. I really regret that.
I'm really glad I didn't have you as a coach.
You did, damn it.
Oh,
You don't remember trauma, but yeah, so I think that's I hear that a lot of older coaches, and that goes back to the whole thing. Like I do see coaches of a certain age should have come to this realization. Right. It does take time. It's very difficult as a young coach unless you've had a great mentor.
Man, I was such a good coach back then. I can only
No, but coaches should have that revelation where they, as with age, they learn perspective. Time teaches you that, oh my God, I've seen a million players. They all start out like this, they end up like this. That should happen, but then you see coaches who've been doing it for 30 years and they're not doing what you said. They're not going through their list of, they're not reflecting on, man, what an ass was I. I will remain an ass because it's embarrassing to change. So there is that, the person trapped in their own garbage. And then so reflection, positive, supportive after well executed or bad results. That's what you said, Meach, right? A coach who's supportive after a bad result, but a good execution. So if the player has done some good things in a play, who cares if they lost the point, missed the serve? That was a great aggressive play. That was really well done. You just didn't get the result, but who cares about that? You will eventually. And my last one, and then I'll shut up for the remainder of the show.
A first.
I can hear all the people in Spotify land cheering. In Spotify landia. Understands process are more important than short-term results. So I just said that.
Oh, wow.
So you understand that process is more important than results. And I will throw this in because it
Oh.
is my last
bonus.
bonus thought.
No,
Zuby's
okay.
bonus thought. No, the idea is that, if you are a person who wants to win, okay? So I've said this in other episodes. You're so competitive. You want to win. The best way to win is to not worry about winning right now. That's how you ultimately win. Long-term winning is what matters most. And if you're worried about short-term winning and losing, you'll never get there because you've overemphasized everything in the present and stressed yourself and everybody else out. and you will fail in the long run because you'll trip over every little thing you're looking at. So think about performing in the short term for sure, but understand that what performance means is not getting caught up in result, but focusing on long-term process. That is universal. It's not just volleyball. That's any sport. It's business, it's school, it's work, it's relationships, right? Like for me, like my wife, like I tell her, it doesn't matter how I treat you right now. I'm just kidding.
Bowel movement.
I forgot our anniversary today, but you're thinking, you just. I'm very romantic that way.
You didn't hear what I said.
What did you say?
Bowel.
Bowel.
You may not
Bowel.
win today,
Yes.
but eventually.
Long term. Think long term. Bowel
As
movements.
you get older.
As I
yeah.
get older, they just get more frequent and they come out faster.
Oh.
It's like I got a vitamins in my stomach. Oh, yes, I will have the chocolates.
All
maybe.
right.
Okay, so now,
Zuby
what about
is
your
signing
list?
off.
What about your list, guys? Is there anything we didn't hit? Because I think
No.
that's all mine.
We got my last little bit there. Kind of combine them and combine a few, and yeah.
What about Meach?
I would say one of the things that you want to look for is how dedicated is the team as a coach to you by the end of the season, right?
As a barometer.
Yes. If you've built it so that they will go through a wall for you, that's a good
literally,
sign.
literally.
They'll knock themselves out to go through a wall.
Yeah.
Basically,
You won.
Yeah, you've won. That's
Yeah.
a good way of saying it. Like there's different types of winning. You can win with your players. You can win games, but if you win in the relationships that you build, if you win in the bonds that you form, that's a win too, because it can continue on.
I felt like singing Kumbaya there.
Oh.
That was good.
Moment.
That was good. We missed it.
Meach
We'll dub
Meach
it in.
sounds so much better when he speaks into the mic.
Yes.
I know. That's what I'm saying. What a waste of that sexy voice, Meach.
Mm.
Well,
Wait, aren't you done talking?
I'm
Oh, we can turn his mic.
rest
off.
of the show.
I'm hosting now.
Oh,
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great point. That is the ultimate gauge. So that should be the topper. Really, is that the ultimate season ends with every player wanting to come back and play with you next year.
Yeah.
Not that they will, if they hopefully a good club is set up where you're not having the same coach every year, but they should want to come back and play for you. That's a good litmus test.
well, that and you'd want to see each player still loves the sport. Well, that's a bottom line. Still loves the sport, but like loves the sport, and they've all improved.
But don't you think that's tied up in that? Like if
It
they got
I'm just
worse,
saying,
they don't
like-
want to come back
But
and
I'm
play for
like,
you.
obviously, you don't want to be like they don't just want to come back for you just because you're nice to them and you're buddies with them and stuff like that.
Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah, agreed.
Like, yeah, but
Yeah,
it's like
we're assuming
they've
that the athlete-
improved, and
yeah.
they want to. Yeah, exactly, because
Yeah.
of the trust and because having that trust you need that to be able to improve it, elevate your game, and then
yeah, I think the only way club
it's implied,
athletes,
I guess. But.
yeah, the only way club athletes would want to come back is if they're improving.
True
like
athletes, yeah.
competitive volleyball players, like you're getting better, the coach is fair,
Yeah,
the coach is has a good team culturally. We're gonna do an episode probably on culture. I think that's the way. I guess this is sort of maybe that episode.
leading to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
well,
yeah, I
because
think
the
that's
coach really sets the culture.
the coach is the culture. So I think that if the players come back, like you were saying, Meach, like if those relationships are strong, the bond is there, the lessons are learned. Yeah, I think that's a great one to end on. What do you guys think? Unless Erik, you got something else?
No.
Okay, Meach.
I do. It's just a little bit more controversial, of course.
Oh no,
Okay,
I'm
I'm ready.
I may have to edit this out.
Yeah, it might be something that a lot of people might
I have a
be on
feeling.
edge.
Is this a joke? I have
It's
a feeling
not a
this is a
joke.
joke. Okay,
I'm very, very serious.
it's a bad joke. Okay, anyway, go
No.
ahead. We'll hear it.
Especially since it might rub people the wrong way, because not everybody feels like I do, but they should.
The setup is I'm very intrigued. Nobody's listening at
Ultimate
this.
season.
Just so you know, nobody's listening at this stage of the show. So.
I can turn Zuby off.
What? Yes, you.
Go ahead, Meach. Go ahead.
Ultimate season. Okay.
Uh-huh.
the way that can really decide if they had the ultimate season. Okay, and this is the final.
Just say it.
This is the final
Shut up, Zuby.
topic. Okay.
Okay.
The only way they can measure if they had a final season, whether it be girls,
A final season?
women, men,
You mean a fulfilling
boys?
season, not a final season.
at the ultimate season.
Ultimate.
Okay. Pizza party.
Oh.
And Meach has left the building. Thank goodness. Okay, now let's start the real show.
What's the big idea?